How are you doing?
We're good. We're just gonna give it a few minutes and see if
Hi,
people check in. If we get a couple more, we'll see. Sometimes people are a few minutes late.
Maria. Can I ask you where I can, because I missed the third one. I couldn't join. Is it recorded somewhere?
Yes, and I'll introduce you to Nuda in just a minute. I think we're gonna, if you, she can put that information in the chat because I'm certain you're not the only one that needs to know that.
No, I'm sorry, I couldn't. Doing my best to join this one in the middle of the day in New York, and but that one, I was in the middle of a meeting, and I know it was the food one, and I'm desperate to see it.
Of course. Yeah, we've got them recorded and Nuda will
Oh,
have all of the
thank
information
you.
for you. Yeah, she'll share it in the chat there. And Nuda, I think we're gonna start with everyone muted so that we can just get in and get set it. Yeah, cool. And if it's just the five of us, then it's just the five of us.
I don't have all of the answers. No, no. It takes patience to make things work. I'm slowly seeming to find. Despite all the obstacles, I'm patient. I gotta be. For only in the practice will I find my way through adversity. Cause all I need is hope when it gets hard. All I need is meaning through the dark. All I need is something to light the spark. All I need is reason to restart. Give me one more reason to restart and have hope again. Glory, show will rise. If I just 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 glory, show will rise. Glory, glory, show will rise. Just believe it.
So I think we're just gonna give it 2 more minutes, guys, and see if anyone else logs in last minute, and then we'll go ahead and get started if that's okay with everyone.
Perfect.
This one is a medicine for you and me. I wrote it from the depth of my being and in my soul. I wrote this from my heart and my soul for deeper healing. This one is a medicine, a medicine, a medicine. I wrote this from my heart and my soul for deeper healing. Wrote it from my heart and my soul for deeper healing. I wrote this from my heart and my soul for deeper healing. This one is a medicine, a medicine, a medicine. You know that we need it. You know that we need it. You know that we need it. We all need some healing. This one is a medicine, a medicine, a medicine. This one is a medicine, a medicine, a medicine.
All right, guys, I think we can go ahead and get started. And if anyone trickles in, they trickle in. And if it's just us, it's just us, which is great. Half of you are pretty much my family, and some of you I haven't met yet. Just so you know, online today we have the amazing, amazing teammate Nura, who is here to answer questions in the chat that you might have. And she's my technology guru because I don't know anything about that stuff. So she's here joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and she'll be checking that and can respond there. For the most part, we'll just keep it on mute because I'll just give you a little talk. And then what I'd like to do today with our time is we'll do a little guided visualization practice that has to do with what I'm talking about. And then we'll close it up and hopefully have a little time for Q&A at the end as well. And we're going to try to keep it to about an hour for all of you. So really grateful that you're all joining us. Thank you for being here. We're as a team, we're really excited to offer this psychedelic preparation series because there's so much that goes into getting ready for it. And there are practices that we can do beforehand, before a ceremony, before a retreat, that can really set the stage for getting the most out of our experience. And I love working with this team at Our Future is Ancient at Soul Medicine because we're eternal students and we've just been in the medicine probably a little bit longer than some of you. But we're always learning, and we're just really excited to offer you what we do know at this stage. And it's all based on our own experiences. We've set a lot of ceremonies, and we all bring a different expertise. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Maria, and my background is in psychology. I am a registered hypnotherapist in the state of Colorado with the National Guild. And I've spent about 5 years doing a real deep dive into plant medicines and working in psychedelic retreats. So yeah, I bring a lot of interest in the subconscious and how our thoughts are playing into our experiences in the world around us. And I'm currently completing a coaching program as I'm working on becoming an integration coach so that I can help you guys take these experiences and make them last, make them have lasting effect on your lives at home and put them into real practice. So I have spent a lot of time thinking about the connection of our thoughts and the effect on our reality and how that plays into the psychedelic realm as well. Certainly the stories that we have going on in our minds all the time, we don't spend a lot of time being conscious of them, but they're there. And we're always in communication with different parts of ourselves, whether or not we're aware of it. And I've found that when we get into the medicine space, a lot of times those conversations are through the roof. They become very heightened and very present. And so I think it's really applicable to the work we do in hypnosis and in these deep visualization spaces is to build sort of that connection. So that's what I'd like to do. And what we're going to address today in this session is to become conscious and become more aware of some of these areas that we might have a conversation going on where our conscious mind says, yes, we're totally ready for this. I'm ready. I want to address this. I want to dive in. And somewhere there's a little self-sabotaging voice. There's that voice that says, yeah, I know what I should do, or I think I'm ready for, but I'm not doing it. And looking at why that is. Where does that voice come from? What is it really? And how is it playing into keeping you from your goals? So one of the things that I can address in this realm is something we hear a lot. It's relatively common in the medicine for people to not fully have the experience that they might be expecting. And we call this like the medicine opening up to them. And maybe you can get into a medicine space and say, there's a lot of reasons that it might not open up in exactly the way you think it is. There's many, many, many different ways to have an interaction in the medicine space. It's always a conversation when you're in medicine. There's always a relationship to some aspect of yourself, to the medicine itself, to some aspect of this consciousness. And so there's a lot of factors, of course, that can play into that. If you've got any drug interactions, if you're taking SSRIs, all of these things can keep you from having a bigger experience, as one might expect a mystical experience to look like or feel like. But one of the big things that we do know is resistance. And we all have it. We all have resistance. It will inevitably come up at some point in your journey with the medicine, either in the medicine itself or beforehand. There's a lot of those jitters of like, oh, I actually don't have time to do that. Yes, I've wanted to do this for years, but no, I can't make the space for it. My life is too busy. It can look a lot of different ways, this voice of resistance. But one of the reasons it can be there is because we have this conscious belief that, yes, I'm ready. Yes, I'm open. I think I'm being completely open to experience. And yet there's a subconscious voice, a subconscious blockage happening that's keeping us from doing the things that we want to do or reaching the goals we want to reach. And when that's in the medicine, those blockages can play out. Sometimes the medicine can disappear entirely. It can seem like no experience, or it can seem like a really long and rough experience of resisting what's being shown. So it's really important, I think, to address these internal voices that can potentially be blocking something that our conscious minds think we're ready for. Mm-hmm. So, of course, we can't ever predict what an experience is going to look like. There's no telling. It might just be a knowing, it might be voices, it could be visual, it could be a literal infinity amount of different, look at an infinite amount of different ways, because you're opening the realm to infinite possibility. But there are things that we can do to prepare ourselves and practice so that we know that when we get into that conversational space with the medicine, when we get into that interactive realm, we already have an interaction and with our own voices. We know how to interact with them. We know how to hold space for our own processes, so that when we're faced with things in the medicine, we have the tools already set up to interact with from a place of compassion and safety within ourselves. Yeah. So it's good to bring the awareness to these voices and the beliefs. They come from anywhere in your childhood. They can be conditioning from anywhere, from our family systems, from society. These voices of the subconscious are patterns. There are belief systems. There are networking of how we interact with the world. And most of the time, we're really not aware of how they're in communication with us, but they're there. They're often our filter for relationships, for how we communicate with other people. And we actually filter a lot of our interaction with the outside world through these blocked pieces, these sub-personalities, if you will, that are not fully expressed yet. So really, the more we can practice bringing awareness and presence to these parts of ourselves and these voices, the more that we can be aware of what's going on in our subconscious, and then learn to work with it, and then build a relationship to it such that we can move forward hand in hand with it. A lot of times these blockages can be really uncomfortable because they can be aspects that have learned to repress and to not take us to places that feel uncomfortable, where we feel discomfort. These can be heavy emotions. These can be fears and things that we learned when we were children that did not feel safe. But now as adults, we can open ourselves more to these feelings, to these emotions that are so uncomfortable, and we can hold them from a space of adulthood, a space of safety and compassion. And very often that's what we'll find in the medicine, that where the healing is where the discomfort is, really, because the healing takes these blockages, these places, and puts it in your face. Very often you can be very confronted with these old belief patterns and these old ways of being that are no longer serving, and it can be a really uncomfortable process. but it is something, again, that we can practice, and we'll do that briefly here in a little bit, so that you can get a taste for, how do I face these emotions, these feelings, these beliefs, and how do I hold them? How do I look at them? How do I work with them so that I'm not spending so much energy keeping them down, keeping them in my body and out of my consciousness? This is not a process that we're necessarily doing from a conscious place. This is a process that we've learned. It's a learned behavior from many, many years for most of us. And it is an avoidance, but it's important to note that it's typically an avoidance that was very useful at some point. These blockages, these personalities that keep us in resistance to things, these were learned behaviors that were brilliant for a child that knew that it wasn't safe to feel these things for whatever reason. These mechanisms were protectors, and they were serving a beautiful purpose at some point. And the only thing we have to recognize now is that they're no longer serving. And how can we recognize what no longer serves if we can't hear that it's there, if we're not aware of it, right? So in this class, my hope is to help you identify some of your own internal blockages, and hear some of those voices, the ones that don't believe that we can change, the one that say, they self-sabotage our process and that obstruct us from our goals. And so we're going to do a little bit of a practice that will help us learn to build a relationship with these aspects of ourselves and to start a conversation with these subconscious blockages so that we can have an ongoing relationship. And once you know it's there, then you can't ignore it anymore. Then you're paying attention to these deep processes inside. Yeah. So any questions so far about that? You can raise your hands or unmute yourself. Okay. Okay. All right. So yeah, basically, it's just about your willingness that we want to work on, the willingness to see, to feel, to sit with this discomfort, these uncomfortable places in our subconscious. And we're likely to try to resist them with equal force in the psychedelic realm as we are in this realm, meaning you may not be aware or wanting to push away something that's in the psychedelic space, but when it comes up, it feels too big, too scary, too something. And so we do block it. And you can very much in the medicine say, no, I don't want to go there, right? Like, I don't think I'm ready to feel that. I don't think I'm ready to look at that. Please no. And it's one of the oddities of the medicine and how it works, but very often it will go away because you said you weren't ready. Sometimes it will continue to put it and continue to put it and continue to put it in your consciousness. And the more you resist, the harder it will be put in your face. And that can also create for a very uncomfortable experience. Trust me, I am aware of how that can feel in the medicine. So again, this practice is to just learn what it's like to sit with those things that can potentially be put in your face so that we can accept that they're there. We can look at them and we can sit in a place of discomfort with curiosity, with an open mind, with being open to the experience. To that end, there was a really interesting MAPS review of studies, and they went through a bunch of different studies of psilocybin, and they were looking at factors that affect our response to the psilocybin. And so it corroborates kind of this idea, really, because they were saying that the strongest predictor of alterations in consciousness was the personality trait of what they're calling absorption. And they define absorption as the awareness being fully engaged in an experience. So paying total attention, being completely absorbed in what these individuals were experiencing. They further extrapolated that to say that absorption is associated with the personality trait of being open to experience. So that's relating to a person's receptiveness to new ideas, to new experiences. And I thought that was really interesting because it's being open to these new experiences that might be uncomfortable. And so how does that relate? How can you have total attention and be completely engaged with an experience and an idea that might not be very comfortable for you, that might be pretty foreign or something you don't want to look at because you've been resisting it for a long time? And the study actually even goes on to say that the degree to which people had this, what they're calling a mystical type experience, while on psilocybin was related to their individual proneness to the absorption. So basically the takeaway from that is that people who are more open to their inner experience seem more likely to have a mystical experience, which makes total sense, right? If you're open to feeling whatever comes up, if you're able to hold that space for whatever may come up, then you're more likely to dive into a deep mystical experience because you're not in resistance of it. You're in the flow with it. So yeah. Let's see. In this experience, we're going to move into it's a practice that I've utilized quite a bit. It's a bit of a meditative experience. So it looks like everyone that has their cameras on is at least in a place where you can sit and go into this experience. For those of you that might be moving around or in a car or traveling or something, please just let me put this little disclaimer out there that don't close your eyes. You can just stay listening to the process, but please stay conscious and safe wherever you are. This is a practice that will go into a little bit of our blockages. It'll be a brief practice, but it can be uncomfortable. So for those of you that may have some history that could be traumatic or deeply uncomfortable, I'll invite you now to just take a few moments to look around you in your space, to be aware of the room and the things within it that make you feel safe, and know that you are in control of the next session here, that if you're ever too uncomfortable or it feels like too much, please just open your eyes and resource and ground yourself back in your own space. And you can feel free to listen along. So the way this will go is we're going to feel into an area that we're going to feel into something that you are hoping that you might feel like at the end of one of these experiences. So if you can start to bring to mind, just thinking about, who do you want to be at the end of a retreat? What is this person like? What are the feelings that you would hope to feel coming out of a retreat, coming out of a medicine experience? We're going to feel into that a bit, and then we'll move from that and see if we can find some of the blockages, some of the resistance to that experience and where that might be living. And then we'll work a little bit in that space. So does anyone have any questions or concerns before we go ahead and dive into a little bit of a brief practice here together? Okay. So it is like a guided visualization and a guided meditation. So if you want to go ahead and just start finding a comfortable seated position, taking a few deep breaths into your inner realm, your inner experience, maybe closing any doors or making sure you have the privacy that you'll need. And just take a few deep breaths to focus your mind's eye and your inner reality for a little bit. And you can start to bring to mind this person that you want to be after your experience. How do you want to feel in your life? What is this best version of yourself? Who do you want to be? And how does that person look? How does you in your highest and best feel? Bring into your body what that might feel like to be totally empowered, have inner peace, have the confidence you're seeking, have the ease within yourself, and really feel that inside the body. And you can start to bring to your mind's eye, and if you can't see it clearly, it's okay, just imagine. But if you had this goal, if you reached this level of being that you're aiming for, what would you see around you that tells you that you have it? What are the things in your environment showing that you have reached this level of being, this heightened state? What do you see around you? Really bring into detail the things, the people, the environment around you. And now see if you can touch or feel something within this environment that lets you know that you have reached this level of being. And you can bring into your mind's eye both the physical sensation of what you're touching in the environment around you and the emotions that you feel being in this state, being in this highest level of yourself. What can you touch or feel that lets you know that you've reached this goal? Now see if you can move into what do you hear around you that lets you know you've reached this goal? What are people saying? What's the environment sound like? Is there someone telling you something? Saying something about you to you? What can you hear? And this one can be sometimes a little tricky, but see if you can pull to your mind's eye what you can taste that lets you know you've reached this goal. What's the taste in your mouth when you're in this place of your highest and greatest being? The food, your breath, tasting what it is to be in your highest and greatest. And shifting now, you can take a breath in through the nose and see what do you smell in this environment where you are your highest and greatest iteration. What can you smell in this environment of your highest and best being? And take these moments to really embrace and embody what you see, what you feel, what you hear, what you taste, and what you smell when you're in this version of being the best part of yourself, this version that you really want to be. You can start now to scan your body and feel for anything that might be the slightest bit of objection or resistance to this reality. Can feel in the body, these can feel like constrictions, buzzing, stuckness, discomfort, tightness, numbness. Where in the body is there a sign of a blockage or a voice that says you can't, you won't, It won't happen for me. Where's the disbelief living in the body? Get really close and really clear on where in the body is that sensation coming from. Follow it with your mind's eye deep into that place in the body. Get close to the sensation, the constriction, the tightness, the discomfort. And as your mind's eye moves closer and closer to this place in the body of disbelief, of resistance, see if you can start to see what images form, color, a texture, an emotion. What images start to come to mind? And if this sensation were to take on a figure or a form, who or what might that form be? So if this discomfort resistance was going to take on a form, who or what might that be? An animal, a person you know, a guide, or yourself at some age. Can you see what it's becoming? And as this figure starts to take shape, can you give it a voice? Would the voice have a message for you? Can you listen really closely to hear what it's saying? What is this figure or form trying to tell you? Listen. You can start to interact with this figure of resistance, this image of the blockage, by asking it questions. What does it believe its purpose is within you? What does this resistance or blockage think it's doing for you? Why does it exist? Let it speak to you. What does it believe its purpose is within your body? And when did it start? You can ask the form or image, what age does it think you are? How does it see you? And when you feel ready, you can ask, what is it most needing from you? Is there something you can give it to make it more comfortable, to feel safe? Really listen in for what does it most need from you. And then take a few moments to give it exactly what it needs. Whatever it's asked for comfort, for love, for friendship, for space, for a safe space to just feel, to just be. Create this space within you to provide the figure exactly what it's asking for you. You can give it the time and the physical space within your body to give it exactly what it needs. And once you feel that you've really listened and heard its message, you can let it know that it's safe now. You can show it your current age, your current capability to feel, to hold it, to express for it, and to keep this part of you safe. Share your wisdom with it. Maybe this part doesn't need to keep up this resistance to your goals in this way anymore. Maybe it's been playing a role that no longer serves of a protector, of anger, of sadness, that you no longer need this part to carry because you are capable of carrying it. So maybe there's a role that would be more appropriate for this piece. What role could it play within you as an ally? Maybe it just needs to be a child again. What role would be appropriate and feel best for this part? And where inside the body can this part live in a space of safety, in a space where it knows it will be heard and seen and held? Can ask it, where in the body can it take on this new role of ally? And let it move there. Create a space within the body that's perfect for this new role, for this new ally to live. You can witness it living in this new place. What is it doing in this new space? How is it being? Does it seem happier, lighter, freer, safer? And sometimes it just needs space to be. Whatever it's needing or doing is perfect, is progress. And when that feels complete for you, you can thank this piece for all of the beautiful work it's done protecting you, helping you, for the ways that it sheltered you, kept you safe, for all of the work that it's done over many years. Thank it. And when it feels complete, you can bring your mind's eye back to the breath, back to your heart space. Grateful for this time with these parts, grateful for the relationship that's being built, knowing that you can come back and speak with these parts whenever you need. And slowly, slowly, you can bring your eyes back into your room, back into the space around you. Taking a few deeper breaths as you open your eyes. Yeah, really nice work. So for some of you, that might have felt like a breeze, and for some of you, that might be a little bit difficult. And anywhere you're on that path is perfectly acceptable and fine, because it's just a very brief touch and beginning of a process of becoming aware of the pieces of ourselves that live inside and what's really going on in the subconscious, and how that might be playing out in ways that we haven't seen. And if it felt difficult for you, just know also that the study shows that this medicine does help people to reach that absorption phase. So it was showing that the people that had experiences with psilocybin, they were more open afterward to this absorption, to these mystical experiences, which I think really speaks to the way that the medicine works to help us open up and become comfortable holding these things. And sometimes we need the push of the medicine to get us there. And sometimes we can also practice this outside of there, doing these sorts of practices of really just sitting and listening and consciously guiding ourselves or being guided into the subconscious to see what's really living there. So in closing, I just want to really express that in my experience, the number one thing, if you want to have a mystical experience, if you want to be open to the medicine, the number one thing that you can do to help yourself is to practice this level of acceptance, of feeling, of being able to hold and witness different aspects of yourself. It requires presence. It requires slowing down and becoming really mindful. But when we do these practices, we really live in not resisting what's being shown to us. And we can do that all day. We can resist everything inside of us all day long, or we can practice feeling and letting things come up, and little by little holding those and interacting with them. When we get into the medicine space and we work with our subconscious selves, whether it's in medicine or not, really, we're in a relationship. We're building a relationship that needs attention, that needs space to be heard, that needs conscious awareness to be witnessed and to be held with love and compassion. Just like any other relationship in your life, it's something you have to cultivate. And we can practice that, which is really beautiful. So I hope that you got a little bit of a taste of what that practice can look like in this session, and sitting a little more in discomfort and finding that like there's beautiful healing and medicine in the discomfort, and that truly the mystical is awaiting you in the space of open curiosity, in cultivating curiosity instead of resistance and shutting down what comes, but getting really curious about it. So yeah, so that's what I've got for you today, guys. Thank you for joining me in that practice. I'm so glad you were all here. It's so good to see you. And now I'll open the space up for any questions, comments. If you want to share your experience, whatever's on your heart, we'd love to hear it.
Oh my God, it was so great. Thank you so much. Yeah, I was able to follow. I mean, it's very well thought, because it's a trick. You're in this amazing moment, and it's like, okay, where's the enemy? No, it worked really well for me, and thank you. It was a bit of a judge that I have to revenge everything that happened, and all of a sudden it was sitting in my mind, and I took it to my heart, and it was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's beautiful. I'm so happy you could go there. I'm so happy you did it. And yes, the medicine and these practices are very tricky about what they can pull up.
No, but it's a very nice way to put it, because you are creating who you want to be, and then it's easier to see the shadow. So I thought it was brilliant. Thank you. And your voice is so sweet. Thank you. It took me I was like a baby following you.
I love that. Thank you, Joaquin. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that.
I don't want to share. Hi, everyone. I want to share that much about my personal experience. I just had a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you spoke of medicine space, like somewhere you have like a conversation, right?
Mm.
And my question is like, how much do you think it's like you are interacting really with another consciousness, or it's just that you're interacting with these parts of yourself that maybe the medicine can make you easier to see that than when you're in just the conscious state, right?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Sonita. It's a big one for sure. My personal take on it is that when we take the medicine, we are opening up to consciousness, to all consciousness. We're sort of opening a portal to that. And very often what comes up can be our own what comes up is how consciousness is reflected within us, if that makes sense. So there's an infinite possibility of emotions, things to see, conversations to have with consciousness, but we are consciousness deep within us. It exists within us. And so when we take the medicine, to me, we're tapping into these parts of ourselves that can be unseen and unrecognized by even us. It might look like something else and something totally foreign to us. But in my experience, personally, the message is very often about me, for me, directly pertains to my life. And whether or not that's some other being of another realm or an aspect of ourselves, it's, in my view, it's all kind of the same, right? It's all this conversation with consciousness. And that's something that we can tap into and draw into ourselves. And I guess, yeah, I do see consciousness as something a bit outside of or above us, but we come from it. And so we can tap deeply inside to go into the all and communicate with something much bigger than ourselves and have a communication be from within ourselves. Does that make sense at all? It's pretty heady. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's not just the mind that has to these divisions and such. So maybe.
Well, I mean, I think different things can happen in the medicine as well, depending, I mean, very often depending on dose, but depending on where you go with it and how deep you go with the medicine. I do feel that there's a conversation with different parts of yourself. And then there's times when there's a conversation with something, some realm, some beingness, some voice that seems very outside of ourselves, that seems to be something much greater than ourselves. Yeah. And to me, I've always taken that voice of something that seems all-knowing as either my higher self that knows that we really do know these things, right? Like, this is why they call taking the medicine a great remembering, because it's remembering all of the consciousness that we came from, that we were once a part of, and then separated into the individual. And so we're remembering a lot of these things that we came from that can be our highest self. It can be consciousness. It can be God. It can be the universe. There's many different names for what that is. And I don't know that we as humans really can say what that is. But it is something that when it's a gnosis, when it's a bit of information that resonates very deeply, it's because we've known it all along. It's because it's a bit of consciousness that has existed within us this whole time. And we're just, yes, there it is. It's resonating, it's healing, it's remembering another layer and another layer that brings us back to being a little more whole. I hope that answers your question. I know that was very ethereal.
I don't think it's a question that has like a final answer, like
right.
But it's an interesting point of view.
Yeah.
Thanks. And also thank you for the meditation. It was pretty cool. I think I'm gonna repeat it afterwards with many things.
Yes, I love that. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you were here. It's wonderful to see you. Well, there's no pressure for anyone to share an experience, but we'll leave it just another minute if anyone has questions or comments or concerns at all.
Can I give you my opinion?
Oh, please. This is my dad, you guys, so hold on tight.
Well, it's a whole new experience for sure. I coincide with I'm sorry, I cannot read. Joaquin, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Your voice is calming and it's deep.
Oh.
And I'd love to see more.
Oh, thanks, Dad. I love you. My dad's the best. I love you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for sharing that. It's an aspect that I've never explored and never looked into. And coming from an older generation, these were things that, that were kind of obscure out there. People, they do these things. But you bring it up to present. And it's enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you, Daddy. I love you. Thank you for going on that journey with me.
Thank you.
I mean, it's so true that I think out of fear, or it has been put all in this dark section, and then now it's coming, I think, stronger and nicer, right? I think maybe because we all figured it out that there's so many things that are not working that it's like there has to be something better somewhere, right? Revisiting these things. What I was going to ask you, if I'm not an expert at all, I'm just starting, but I'm doing some microdoses, and it helped me through my divorce, to be honest, in a way that I never thought, because it helped me to stay at a level of humanity and not get hard personally, and it really helped me to go through it. But do you think we should, I mean, not in a big doses, but we should start testing the waters a bit during this process till December? No sé, the other day somebody said, oh, well, maybe we should do, I do like very little, like half microdoses, and it's like, oh, maybe one day try a bit more, just to start feeling a bit of, so you kind of train yourself to deal with it. It's something you will, I mean, I'm talking about, I wouldn't do anything, I'm afraid of doing anything by myself that goes, but do you think that can be good to maybe one day try a bit more and see how you feel and before going?
Yeah, I think a couple things about that. I think certainly if you're doing little micro doses before the lead up, it can bring up, microdosing. Just the idea is that you're not having any psychedelic effect whatsoever, but you are getting some, like, emotions will come to the surface, some things will, it can bring about some, they say synchronicities, but some things that can seem like, okay, there's something more going on here. I'm a little more open, I'm a little more sensitive, certainly. But also, if you're microdosing before the retreat, we would probably, or it would be a good idea potentially for you to not do anything in the weeks before, in just a couple of weeks before, so that you can come in with a clean system, because it will operate on the same serotonin pathway. And what happens in the brain is that if we're utilizing that pathway a lot, say with SSRIs and antidepressants, the neurotransmitter systems, the receptors will downregulate. So there will be so much flooding of serotonin that you'll actually have fewer receptors, and that will just happen naturally if you're using it a lot, right? So if you're doing this microdosing for a long time before, it can actually set you up that you would need a higher dose to then feel something. That's why people that have taken long-term SSRIs, they need a lot more medicine to kind of get there, and it's harder for them to open up to it because that serotonin pathway has been utilized so much already.
Okay, that's great. So I mean, I'm doing so minimal that you will laugh if I tell you exactly what it is, but if but it's good. So you think 2-3, I for example, the last 4 weeks I quit alcohol. I'm not drinking anything.
Oh, congratulations.
Because, so maybe it will be a good idea to stay no alcohol till the end of the retreat, and maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks while you not doing any microdoses. You mean 2 or 3? What do you think would be better? I will do what you tell me. It's like,
yeah, well, okay, so this is not medical advice. I am not a medical expert by any stretch. But what I can tell you is that the longer that you can be not utilizing that pathway and let it just naturally be what your brain's baseline is, kind of, then when you come into retreat, you're working from that baseline, and you can sort of more easily drop in, I believe.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit easier. So I would say 3 weeks if you can do it. Yeah, it would be great. And 2 weeks is fine as well. If you
perfect.
Yeah, 2 weeks is usually a good window. Yeah.
No, I love it. I proposed myself not to drink for a month, but I will keep it till the end of the year. I think it's good to. I mean, it's funny because they told me that you get alcohol separates from your center, and after 3 weeks, I'm kind of feeling it, like you are more easily grounded without alcohol, and I'm surprised by it. But,
well, I mean, they say the difference between medicine and drugs is that drugs and alcohol will make you forget, and medicine helps you remember. So, if you're using alcohol to sort of repress your system and calm yourself down, it really is a bit of a pushing down of that subconscious of, like, say there's an anxiety there, rather than going close to it and hearing what it needs and being in communication with it, we're just drowning it in alcohol and saying, I don't really want to, not ready for that. I just don't want to feel that now, which is okay. It has its time and place, but to be conscious of what we're doing when we do it.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joaquin. All right, guys. Well, we did it. We're 2 minutes from an hour. We're right on time. If anyone has any last questions, I'm open to it. Otherwise, I'm really, really, really grateful that you were here. Thank you for who joined. It was a pleasure to have you in this space. And I will hope to see all of you on retreat here very soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Sweetie. That was wonderful.
Great.
Thank Love you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.